chairperson of the Fasanok Athletes Commission. Thank you for the support that you've shown our athletes to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Our social media pages are buzzing with content that is athlete-centered and focused on portraying the grit and passion of our amazing Fiji athletes. Here are our social media handles, so please like and follow.
Bulavinaka, na edango nao miwanga ninrola, taundove ira na valis lisedaki, na Fasanok Athletes Commission. Taumanda ki tuve wavinaka valievu, ena nomuni veto konitiko, ve ira na nanda matatimi ni viti, era waka itabitiko maena ngito lebu ni burubura, na Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Na neto e wata ni ve tartara, ena bola mata na Facebook kena Instagram, era osun ringi tiko ena kena kamburaki watamba kindu tiko, ena nandra waka itabi totoka ko ira nandongi to romolio bungo. Kito kerea kanui taka, nyoni na tale taka, kanina salmuri tiko, na kena kamburaki tiko na kenre tuku nandongi to, ena wata ni ve tartara ongo. Na nui taki ninda na veto koni tiko mai, minaka.
On Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to our second live Talanoa session. My name is Catherine Fabiano, and I'm a member of the Fasanok Athletes Commission. I am super excited to be the moderator for tonight's session. We are so fortunate to have Ben Ryan and Sharon Smith with us tonight. Our theme for tonight is more than just coaching. Bula Sharon, Bula Ben.
Bula Catherine.
How are you both today?
So, all good.
Yeah. It's quite early here in London, and my Wi-Fi failed this morning, and so I rolled out of bed a bit too late as well. So I've been rushing around, and now I can relax, Manda.
All right. Okay, so we'll get right into it. First question is, the viewers as well as myself would like to know, what pushed or inspired you as individuals to take up coaching? We'll start with Ben and then we'll move to Sharon.
It's a good question, and I think it's always important to ask a coach about their origin story. You know, why they do what they do. And you know, I obviously played, and I was a teacher after I played, and I think it's the same reason really that I became a teacher. It's I enjoy helping people become their best versions. That's what I like to do, and that can be, you know, in rugby or in other sports or in a classroom. I get a kick out of it. I enjoy it, and so for me, that's why I took up coaching.
Thank you, Ben.
For me, similar story. I swam for almost half my life, and and then just enjoyed the coaching side of things. I was teaching with Mr. Peterson, who was my coach, and kind of enjoyed it. And after a few years, I couldn't see myself doing a 9-to-5 job. So coaching was, although 5 to 7 in the morning is crazy, but so I just enjoyed doing that, and I've been doing it since. So it's something, and it's always nice to see the outcome, you know, what you've done with the athlete, with the swimmers, and, you know, them improving. And I also teach swimming, babies up to elite. So just to see babies learn how to swim in the end. And and I'm very passionate with just doing it. And so that's what it is. Just being an ex-swimmer and just enjoying the coaching.
This is very hard to do, eh? Okay. All right. So one thing that we know that is important is for coaches to understand their athletes, and that's something that's come to the forefront in the past few years. How important for the both of you is it for coaches to understand their athletes in the sense of their social well-being, as well as cultural upbringing, as you know, that's very big in Fiji, as well as the different personality traits that you have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's vital. It surrounds everything you do as a coach, making sure that you understand the people that you're working with, but finding out what their purpose is, what drives them, how you know when to push and when to pull, and culturally, obviously, you know that there are huge differences. So whether I was coaching, the Fijian team, or I was working in France, or you're working with athletes from inner city areas in London, or rural areas in Scotland, you've got to get to understand them so that you can see what their purpose is. And I think we all start at that point, because the purpose drives your vision, and then the vision drives your mission, and then the mission drives your planning. And so I think for me, if I don't get to know the players well, then I don't think I'll ever quite get the best out of them. I think building that trust up, making sure that people understand that you care about them when you talk about them. And like for Sharon, she's getting athletes out of bed at ridiculous time in the morning to go and look at a black line and swim for hours. They've got to also understand why they're doing it and what the value is, and that purpose becomes quite important at 5 a.m. when it's dark and cold and you're jumping in the pool. And for me, it's exactly the same. The different athletes I work with across different sports, I think it covers everything. It's way more important than any of the technical or tactical, or knowledge in the gym or in nutrition. Understanding the people that you work with, understanding what makes them tick, understanding how their behaviour might be different to everyone else, individualising everything. It's the only way really you're going to get the best out of somebody.
Yeah, definitely. It's just in the past few years, it's all mental health that I'm having to deal with. And just recently, an athlete, I'm not going to name the name or a country, went back to her home and committed suicide. She was 24 years old because she didn't perform well. So I'm not sure what all happened in the end, but it's really important that I tend to get too friendly with my swimmers, being a mother hen and everything else. But I've learned lately that it works for some. And just just working with them and just getting to know them. Cheyenne and Tai Chi are not my immediate swimmers who I took to Tokyo, but we became very close, and I think it's because I'm open with them and I don't put up with shit. Sorry. But we understood each other. They're totally different. They've got totally different personalities. And I think just through the experience of, knowing all different athletes, it worked out well for me. Tai Chi was totally different from Cheyenne in lots of ways, but we worked really well together. And I think that was the main part. We had 10 days of training camp. And I think because the team was selected pretty late, so it was all go, got to Oita. And, we had 10 days to actually train together and get to know each other a bit more. And it was a blessing in disguise that we actually did that. So, but, like with all my swimmers, I tend to just have that friendly, or at the same time, I can be really strict. And some of them, like Catherine's daughter, they get a bit scared of me because I also coached her for a bit. So you got to have that scary side and making them. So I balance it all out. And some last longer than others. And yeah.
Catherine, can I just add something there? Something to pick up on from Sharon about, because I find swimming really fascinating as far as an individual sport, but also you're a part of a team, right? And so, when you go in training in the mornings, you're an individual trying to get individual goals and set individual times. but you're doing it in a team. And so when I was recently, I've been working with the Loughborough swimming team. And they've got I don't know, 4 world record holders in their group, and a lot of Olympic medalists. And they were struggling. Some of the swimmers individually, they were struggling to commit to the purpose and the values of the team, because they were like, well, why does it matter to me what the values are, because I'm an individual. And so it's then linking in to that group that it is important to show respect for your teammates, so that you turn up on time, because if you don't turn up on time, then you're going to mess up the training schedules and the timings, and you're going to let down the people that you're swimming against, and you're going to stop driving competition within the group and all those sort of things. And so it's a real skill, I think, as for Sharon as a coach, that she gets so brilliantly right, is that you've got to treat the individuals right, but then also you've got to have your standards within the group so that everything works.
Yeah, definitely. And they all push each other with the club that I coach. So we have culture talks, we have a topic, and so that's the teamwork. But when they're in the water, it's all individual. So we still have to have that team and the individual, and they push each other and encourage each other. So that's one way of making sure that everyone works as well.
Cool. Actually, just hearing the feedback from both of you, I come from a team sport of hockey, and actually, what you said, Sharon, is so true. You have your individual athletes, as well as they have to work as a team, as what Ben said. And I feel that was the same thing that happened for us in hockey, where you do have your team goals and you need to achieve something together, but you need to set aside your own individual goals on what you will do to help the team perform. So thank you for that. Okay, so our viewers as well as myself, there's something we would like to know. So we understand coaches and athletes have a codependent relationship. What would you as a coach want to see in athletes of Fiji? And what do you think is one of the most important characteristics that an athlete can have? We'll start with Sharon, and then we'll move to Ben.
Sorry, what was the question again? I was
too long. hold on, sorry. So
that was a long question.
Something that's come up in the past years we've noticed is the codependent relationship between a coach and an athlete. So what would you as a coach want to see in athletes in Fiji? And what is an important characteristic that you think an athlete should have?
Well, hard work. They got to be able to, understand that nothing is easy. And you got to work hard to be able to achieve. And that's all it is, just basically, turning up for training and just putting everything. And it's got to be understanding on both ways for coach and a swimmer or an athlete or even a rugby player, that you got to turn up, you got to do the hard work. And so basically we got able to meet in the middle and understand. Is that the right answer to the question that you're? Yeah.
There is no wrong answer here today.
Yeah. So it's just understanding each other and making sure that your swimmer, your athlete understands you, and if there's anything that you need to change, you can both just work it out. Yeah. So basically, yeah.
Look, for me, what I think is important for athletes to foster is being self-sufficient. So, like the New York Giants have a really cool saying when you run out onto the field in their training grounds, blame nobody, expect nothing, do something. And I think it's a nice strapline as an athlete to remember, because it then you then start thinking about being resilient, making sure that you can be self-sufficient. So ideally, as we know, coaches want to make themselves redundant, and so you need the athlete to when they're on the start line or they're jumping the pool, or and then they're at the start as the whistle's going, that they're in control. They feel that autonomy. They're resilient. They can get rid of negative thoughts well. They can also get rid of too much overconfidence. And so for me, I think, you know, that's very, very high on what I like to see in athletes, is making sure that they have that ability to get on with things themselves. And whether that's, I don't know, a football club last week where, you know, making sure that the players don't need the physios and the trainers to go through the warm-up stuff before or the prehab stuff, that they can get their foam rollers out and they can do things themselves, that they can take the kit away, that they can clear their plates, that they can drive a meeting, that they can talk to the coaches about ideas that they've got. All those things is going to improve the individual and the team if they're showing a bit more self-sufficiency.
And also, if I can add in, just, you know, humility is a big thing too. You know, being in an individual sport, it's really important that, you know, well, I can't teach it, but at the same time, you know, I gotta practice it as well. So it's almost like if you win a race, it's always, you know, you have a few kids, yeah, I beat you. So it's something we've been teaching in my swimming club, and I think it's when they get to international level, they've already, you know, learned that. So it makes our job a bit easier. And of course, you know, setting goals is one of the things that we're trying, and it's got to be flexible goals, because you know, if it doesn't go your way, you may give up, or you got to be able to, you know, be flexible about it. And it's only God that will be the one who will be interfering. So it's up to you how you handle it. And just, you know, continue working hard. All my swimming life, I worked really hard, and, you know, you got me in places. I traveled a lot, and I think I've seen a lot of swimmers traveling quite a lot in a few years now. So, Matalita Bundromo, who's, you know, one of my swimmers, she, you know, we've been away on many trips, and we'd have to sleep in the same rooms, and, you know, so it's just being able to manage all that as well is, there's lots of ways that, you know, athletes need to. Yep.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ben. You've given us a good insight into the codependent relationship that athletes and coaches have. Just a small shout out to all our viewers. Thank you so much for coming on to Facebook and YouTube to be here for this session. We truly do appreciate it. This is a much more broader question, not specifically just for the two sports that you both are part of. But what are some practical ways that our sporting organizations in Fiji can train or foster good coaching?
I don't mind starting that. I'm really lucky in the work that I do now. So consult for UK Sport across all the summer and winter sports in Great Britain. So I get to see some amazing practitioners, whether that's individual athletes and sports like combat sports or track and field or the team sports. And I think the coaches all have to have some very discrete skills that they need for those individual sports, but across the board, they've got to have good foundations. So I think if you want to create more top quality coaches in Fiji, then there needs to be the foundations really embedded in a strong level. And that means, you know, you understand the basics around really good planning, really good nutrition, the core fundamentals of athletic performance on a physical level, on a technical level, and the other softer skills on communication, negotiation. Those things for me, I think, as a coach, it's not stuff that you necessarily learn in a textbook. It's from having more coaches at a good level that can share their experiences, as well as provide some resource that coaches can learn about embedding those fundamentals. You know, we all need to make sure that we're very good at those, and we have that broad band, that width of skills, and across that width of skills, we'll probably all have a really small sliver of the skyscraper that goes really high in our individual sports, where we have good knowledge at a very high level there. But then across the width of all those other compartments and what high performance comprises of, you need to have those good fundamentals so you can make good decisions.
Thank you so So much, Ben, for that. I really like what you said about how it goes down to the basics and good fundamentals that can be provided, as well as organizations being able to provide these coaches with the platform and helping them get that much needed training. Yeah? Okay, over to you, Sharon.
Yes, my thoughts are similar. Like with swimming, we actually we've got a association, our national federation, and we've got 9 clubs and all the coaches. It's something compulsory for us to all be qualified coaches. And like what Ben said, it's not all about having a piece of paper. You got to have the experience and the knowledge, and it's just all comes. That's how it should start, and the passion. It comes with the passion too, because it's not an easy job. Any coaching job, not only in swimming. I mean, you gotta. Right now, we're in quarantine, and the rugby boys, they go out tomorrow. Unfortunately, we just got here, and at Sofitel, and they're out having a little. Their coach is still getting them together, and they're still. So his job, he's still working, even in quarantine, and just making sure that they keep their fitness up, and they're playing touch on the beach, and he's sitting here watching them. So I mean, all coaches' jobs don't stop just on the field or at the pool. It's our job to, and just talking about qualifications. Fiji Swimming has opportunities for coaches to actually get some qualifications, because that's part of the criteria. And and we've got a good bunch of coaches, but we just also need more experience and exposure, and just really just broaden our acknowledgement in any way we can.
One thing I like that you said was about the passion, because coaching, I personally think coaching is something that you need to want to do. You can't be forced into that role. You need to be passionate, and I know both of you are both past athletes, so that in experience. Thank you for that. Okay, this question is actually for Ben. When you were in Rio, did you have the slightest prediction that Fijiana would jump from 8th to 3rd in the world rankings in nearly 5 years? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I did. Like when I was in Fiji, and obviously Fijiana, they had an established, they had a program, but there were lots of fundamentals that weren't missing, and also I wanted to make sure that they were not seen as like the poor relations. So one of the things we did early was just move them to training at Uprising. So it meant that when the men's team were training, we'd stagger it. So either the women trained before or after, and it just meant some small soft things where the women would watch the men train, the men would hang around and maybe do some of the warm-up stuff. There'd be a bit more interaction, and they would feel that they were part of the bigger program. And I always felt going into Rio that there were things that were needed still in that program, and there was going back to those foundations. They weren't as strong as they should be when the pressure comes on. And you could see that if they continued like that, and some success meant that there could be more girls playing rugby in Fiji, that there would be more competition on the island, and that it would drive the success of the team. And I thought obviously that was their best tournament performance I've ever seen with Fijiana. They saw glimpses of it in the World Series tournaments in the last couple of years, but not consistently had I seen performances where they were obviously very fit, robust, and worked hard. Were very hard to play against. A bit like when, as a men's team, you play against Argentina, they scrap for everything. That was how Fijiana were playing defensively, and they were pretty disciplined as well. So yeah, there is absolutely there's no reason why they can't continue to do that and grow, and make sure that there's as much opportunity on the island for the female rugby sevens players as there is for the men's.
Thanks for that. Actually, when Fijiana came into the Olympic competition this year, we all saw a change in their team, and it could be from maybe they were given more opportunities, or maybe it was just a new bunch of girls. But you would have seen, Ben, how they set Fiji on fire. Like, the men winning was amazing, but then the women came out of nowhere and just proved all the critics wrong.
Yeah, and I thought they even played, maybe you could argue, a more Fijian style than the men's team in some of those games with their offloading and the counter-attack play. It was brilliant to see. And like, it's a good example, really, that, you know, every team has a timeline. It takes time to do things. It's not always, you don't always get the right people at the right time in the places. And it's not until some of those foundations are in place, as there've been some failings, you've learned from them and moved on. And the backroom staff with the Fijiana also have seen it and done it and been through some highs and lows. You take someone like Jenny, the physio. She's been with the men's team and won series tournaments. She's been with the women's team in the last Olympics, and they would have definitely lent on her experience as well, and her confidence, probably, that she was seeing a team that were very different to the Fijiana teams of the last few years that played in Tokyo.
Thank you. Okay, we're just going to do another shout out to all our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much for being online with us. I hope you're enjoying this session as much as I am moderating it. Okay, we actually have a question from the viewers here. We'll start with Ben. What are your thoughts on cross-training for your respective sports for athletes based on your experience?
I wonder if they're talking about the actual sport cross-training, and I think there's some nice bits of cross-training that's around functional training. So, you know, there's often things that you can do in training that's not needs to be just linear in the gym, that can be multi-directional, can involve some awkward carrying, some awkward movements, combining the various athletic components of anaerobic and aerobic, as well as some resistance stuff and isometric work, which I think is really important. So there's definitely some benefits on that, and you know, and you like to mix up the diet of what your athletes have as far as the physical load. You know, what they get. You know, it's long seasons for teams, just finishing off pre-season in football over here, and you know, they've taken teams on bicycle rides around parks, done types of stuff like some CrossFit stuff. Also, I was just interviewed a guy called Joe DeSena, who founded Spartan, which is kind of a hardcore version of CrossFit and Tough Mudder. He actually got looked after in Fiji when he went on the Eco Challenge in Fiji, and he got very ill in the interior. And he talks about how he thinks that those sort of ways of training also builds resilience, and you know, it's okay to suffer a little bit. You know, he uses a good example for things like CrossFit and probably more extreme stuff, and stuff you've probably seen Nadar do with the Fijian boys, you know, running up the sand dunes with sandbags, things like that. He uses the expression, it's a bit like a rubber band. You know, you pull the rubber band to the point where you know it's close to breaking, and then you just have to ease off a little bit, and then you can pull it again. And that's the physical rubber band that you can do by using things like CrossFit, but it's also the mental rubber band that you can pull, because you know you don't want to get to a point where you forget about how you're training someone mentally as well. So that's quite a long answer to that, but
Thank you so much for that, Ben. Sharon, is there anything you'd like to share with us on that?
Yeah, definitely. Swimmers, you know, they all like to do other things but swim up and down on, you know, in the black line. So we have gym sessions, of course, for the seniors, and they do a lot of games, and we're actually doing some OSAP courses run by the OSAP at Fasanok. So Master Paula, the kind of singer, my sister, one of the coaches in the swimming club, he takes over the SNC, and we actually had Navar as one of the facilitators. So we learned quite a lot of different ways to make it interesting instead of just swimming up and down. I mean, you're doing 11 sessions a week, and to bring in some different cross-training out. And they are working on swimmers are supposed to be flexible, so they don't realize what they're doing for their swimming. We also, before COVID, we actually did a lot of paddling and meeting for little runs and walks and yoga. So those can be regarded as not so much the cross training and just because swimming can be quite monotonous. So it's just basically doing something different and making sure that you're using the right muscles that incorporates the actual sport that you're doing. So we were told not to do too much cycling. So especially the females. So I mean, there's so much out there, the do's and the don'ts, and so it's really important that you make sure you do the right cross training to the sport that you're actually doing.
Thank you. Now that you guys have mentioned that, it is actually true about the cross training between sports. Again, I play hockey, and we did have an athlete with us who was also a Fiji sprinter, and she was in the Fiji team. But when it came down to it, she couldn't play hockey anymore, and it kind of makes sense when you guys are talking about it needs to actually match up to the sport that you are playing. And she was going from hockey to athletics. Obviously, her coaches were worried that someone would hurt her in hockey. So thanks for that. Now, at least personally, I have an understanding on that. Okay, we have another question from our viewers, from Michael Shivendra. So because athletes and coaches share a bond and trust between them, which is both equally important, how do you as individuals manage the external pressures that can affect your athletes? Either of you can go first. Just push Ben always.
well, I think what you don't want as an athlete or as a coach is curveballs. You don't want to have unexpected things appear and then not be in control of them. And at the same time, you're also aware there are times where there are uncontrollables outside of what you do in your training, and that you haven't got any control about. So control the controllables. Make sure that you have an open relationship between coach and athlete so that they feel safe being able to talk to you and not feel like you're putting a big black mark against their name if they're too open about either your coaching or about how they're feeling, so that you can create that trust but be consistent around all of that. And I think that's probably the answer to this question, is that you just need to make sure that that relationship between athlete and coach is a consistent one, and one that breeds the ability to have safe conversations, so that you can control things. And when external stuff comes that drops you off and knocks you off your plan, because you can talk about it, because you probably have got a plan and a way to deal with it, and whether that's social media and the abuse an athlete might get after a bad game, or success and dealing with that, or going into a huge competition like the Olympics, or to start the Premier League season that starts over here tomorrow. All of those things are external pressures that, if you've talked about beforehand, understood the scenarios and what might happen, then it helps you then deal with those issues as they come along.
Thank you, Ben. Sharon, anything else you'd like to add?
Everything Ben said.
That's copied.
All the controllables, I get personally, I do get quite close to my swimmers, for the reason that I'm friendly, and and I know I'm a busybody, and I want to know how they're feeling. We're training, and I'm always asking questions. So to talk about me talking a lot to my athletes, Taichi Wakasama, who I took to Tokyo, he doesn't say anything. So it was really hard for me. And he actually, after the first session, he said to me, Coach, I don't talk, right? I said, yeah, I figured that. And when I mentioned it to Sarote, who's the physio, she said, that'd be so hard for me, because I talk. And so that's his way of training. So I had to learn for him, because I'm the coach and I'm not his direct coach, but it was a learning curve for me, where I have to back off a little bit sometimes. And where Cheyenne was different, she liked me to talk to her and encourage. And I encouraged Taichi as well, but he never said anything. So it was two different people. So just basically, understanding your athlete is really important, and to know that they got to understand you as well. I think that's basically what Ben is trying to say as well. So
Um, just going back to what Ben said, control the controllables. That is something that one of our coaches as well has always said. And to Sharon, like for you having to understand your two different athletes. I mean, you're at the Olympics with two very different athletes. You've got Cheyenne and then you've got Tai Chi there as well. Amazing what you achieved with the both of them, having to understand them as a coach. Thank you for that. We have another question from the viewers. This is from Chantel Fraser. How has COVID impacted support and mentoring to your teams and athletes? What changes or tips do you have for other coaches in regards to like this time during COVID?
Oof. Well, obviously there's been huge impact, and some programs have had to shut down, some have had to be individualized, and some of them, you had to do in lockdown. Over in the UK here, we're 2 years, probably, we're all about 2 years into COVID, and we've come out really of lockdown in the last couple of months. Even though you're still going into training and you're still taking a COVID test, you're still doing the social distancing, you're still having to do all those other requirements. And I think the key thing around COVID is that be aware that it can create isolation. It's also had some positives. I think it's had time for people to reflect on their behaviours and what they want and how hard they train and how clever they train and whether the program needs to move in different directions. So I think as coaches, it's actually given us a bit of time to breathe and look at whether we can do things better, and the same for athletes. But on the negative side, it's created isolation and anxiety, because you're not quite sure, you're uncertain of the future. And I think, heightening those, talking about those, sometimes it doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be more than picking up a phone or having a socially distant walk with somebody, and just letting them unravel those thoughts to you and sharing their problems, to try to then drive towards them feeling that they're getting themselves in a better place. So, yeah, I think there's been, although it's been a disaster globally and there's been some horrible stuff happening both here in Fiji and all over the world, there's also been some positives from COVID, about working together, about understanding people better, and having that reset button that people have had to have to remind themselves of what's important.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough here, because once the pool closed, it was, last year was, I think my anxiety level shot up, and I really suffered last year, and actually was calling a doctor to find out if, I thought that I had the COVID and the virus. And so last year was a good practice for this year, because we knew what was, but I think it was worse this year, where the lockdown happened 3 days before our trials for the Olympics. And, the poor swimmers, they were training so hard. They had, I think it was about 9 months of really, locking down. The pools were open, the gyms were open. We had a program going. And I think 6 out of my 9 athletes were crying because, and so we had to keep, last year, going back to last year, we were actually able to meet in groups of 20 and do our exercises together and, hill runs. But this year was impossible. I think with the new virus, it made it hard for us. Before going to Tokyo, Tai Chi and Cheyenne were training in a backyard pool, and doing their extra exercises at home. And so I really feel sorry for them. I felt sorry for the fact that, and I think what got them going was the mental side of things. Very strong-minded, both of them. And with my swimming club, we have Zoom sessions once a week. I actually got Krishnil Maharaj to come and do a session on psychology, just to make sure that the swimmers knew what was happening and, with what's all happening, because we don't know what the future is. Tai Chi's leaving tomorrow. He actually yelled from the balcony, "What's the plan? What are we, you know?" And so it's really hard because if someone asks me that question now, I don't have an answer because I'm not sure when the pool will open. Um, carry on with backyard pools, but not everyone has pools. So, COVID has taught us to accept things in life, and we should be grateful with what we have. Yeah, it's a tough one. Um, yeah, but we just have to make sure that we stay healthy and take care of ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Now that you're saying it about swimming, I just realized how much more hard it is for swimmers. You need a pool to train, literally. Whereas for us hockey players, we can go for a run if we want. I actually personally struggled during the lockdown as well, being an athlete. I was used to always being on the hockey pitch, but it also helped me step out of my comfort zone. I did a bit of bowling. My dad's a national rep. I'm no good at it, but I mean, it was something different that I could do. And just on what Ben said about adapting to the new norm, that is so true. After COVID had hit last year, I started doing more runs, like road runs and stuff. And then I realized that I didn't need to be on the hockey pitch all the time. There was other things I could do. There was literally no excuse for me as an athlete to just say I can't train anymore. So thank you both for that. We have one last question. We promise this is the last question for you both. What's the next plan like for the both of you? What's your next plans after this?
Sharon, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. It's a short question. I won't forget it.
Finally, a short question.
My plan is to get home and see my family who I haven't seen for about 6 weeks. That's the short-term plan. Be nice to get home. My son's actually migrating, my older boy, so it'd be nice to hopefully I can get to see him before he flies out with his wife in his new life. So it's all family, and then basically, ask Fiji Swimming what's the next step. We have World Championships, short course Worlds in December. We have our Commonwealth Games next year, and then before you know it, Paris is there. So and Pacific Games as well. So there's lots there that we know there is, but how do you plan to do it when you have no pool? I think there's more to with all what's happening at home. It's really sad, we've got people dying, and so it's hard for me to be a bit selfish and say this is what I want. So you really have to sit back and just let the process happen. So basically, we're sending 2 swimmers to Doha in December. How do you pick them? I don't know. So those are the things, and it's going to be challenging, I think, for all sports, not only swimming. Talking to Bola, the coach, and he's not sure what he can do. I mean, runners, like what you said, you can just run, but swimming, we need a pool. So and it's going to be a tough one. So hopefully, the plan is to hopefully send them overseas, but borders are closing everywhere. So we could do short-term goals, we can do long-term planning, but really we need to fix what's happening right now to be able to make those plans and to move forward. It's quite tough, and I think to be an athlete it'll be worse. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Sharon. What's your plans?
I think things are probably a little bit different here, only because we kind of had that year or so of where we just couldn't really do anything. And I haven't been a lot of my work is overseas, and I haven't been traveling for almost 2 years now. And I'm hoping that some of those contracts can get started up again next month, and I can jump on a plane, which would be a very weird thing considering my life was a lot of traveling, and then suddenly go down to 0 for 2 years. So that'll be interesting, and it's the start of our seasons here. So the football season, I work with a couple of clubs over here, and also across mentoring different athletes and other work I do. I don't do that much in rugby now, but I think one of the things that lockdown gave me was that time to reflect on what I want to do, and and I have a really nice mix of things that I jump in and out of lots of different organizations and teams, but you never feel like you're fully integrated in one of them, that when they win or lose, or how they compete at the weekends, you don't feel like you're really fully part of that. And that's what I miss. I miss that belonging that I had, with England, with Fiji, with the club teams I used to work with. So that's what I'm looking for, kind of more of a bigger challenge, and probably I'll take up a more full-time role just in one position somewhere in the next few months.
Oh, thank you so much, Ben, for that. We have come to the end of our session. Actually, sorry, there is one last question. Promise this is the last one. For Sharon, what would be your best moment in the Tokyo Olympics?
Tai Chi being the flag bearer, that was really, really exciting. He was, I think and the fact that I messaged Jerry to thank him, and he returned a really nice message, because he allowed Tai Chi to wear his actual costume, and it was all good spirits all around, and definitely watching Cheyenne and Tai Chi. This was their first Olympics. And I had to sit back and just watch them, and they were just crazy. I mean, I was imagining if it wasn't a COVID year, how much more they could have done. And so just to see the excitements, and they got freebies, they got a free phone, and it was amazing, and just shoes, and Cheyenne was free hair, so she did her hair a couple of times while we were there.
Of course she did.
Yeah. And her nails, and Tai Chi went and got his haircut. Actually, I got a haircut. He actually noticed I had a haircut. So, I mean, because I'll come back home, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a haircut. So I think it was just watching the two swimmers just enjoying everything. And after their race, they really enjoyed their race. And, with the actual preparation that we had, which wasn't 100%, they still performed the best they could do. And I mean, there was a lot of, if I can add in, a lot of slack on social media about the individual minor sports, and it was pretty nasty. And this all comes with people having to understand that that's where mental health comes in. I mean, they read these things, and it's good to be positive. If you're not happy with their performance, you've got nothing nice to say. As my mother-in-law says, is don't say anything. So basically just watching the excitement, and Tokyo, best Olympics ever. They really put everything into it, and it was just a shame that it was a COVID year. We had no crowds in the stand. So but all in all, it was just there's lots of good moments. And of course, watching the boys win and the girls win medals, especially the Fijianas. They're such a beautiful bunch of players, and they're really humble, and just a nice bunch of girls. We traveled with them coming back as well, and stayed there for 10 days. And they're a really good bunch, and a little bit different from Rio, as Ben said, but just very humble, and just so proud of them. So that's it.
Sharon. Ben, would you like to share your favorite moment in the Olympics?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our time difference sucked over here. So it's like we were up at 1 and 2 in the morning, and it's like for the rugby, it was kind of, there was a game at midnight, and then you're getting up at 4 in the morning, and then you're getting up at 10. But I managed to watch all the rugby, the men's and the women's, and so that was the one sport I probably saw all the way through, and did get up for. And I obviously loved it, and it was brilliant. Missed the crowds hugely, and felt for the athletes. I'd love to speak to some of the players to see whether it made any difference at all. Whether they were so in the zone when all those teams were playing that they didn't notice that there was no one in the stands. But I loved it, and but the men's team too. And I know how hard they've had. Everyone has really going through COVID, but being away from friends and family for so long. And then the Fijiana was just so cool because, they weren't expected to medal really, and just to play like they did. And, you know, that semi-final against New Zealand was such an exciting one. So it's like, I don't know what it was, about 4 a.m. here, and I was half asleep until, you know, Fijiana just got onto the pitch and started doing their thing, and so that was brilliant. And then, you know, I'm a track and field fan, so watching some of the upsets in track and field, the Italian winning the 100, 400-meter hurdles world record going, the mixed relays, and I love the new sports. Like I go climbing, indoor climbing round here, and I love climbing. I think it's a brilliant sport. I thought the skateboarding was ace, and the surfing, and so I like the way that the Olympics is moving more into the modern era with some of those new sports. And like, this is a conversation for another day, but like, I love breakdancing. When I was a kid, I tried to do as much as I could, and we got breakdancing in the next Olympics, right? And it's like, so like, Fiji needs to start doing a search, like get some breakdancers in Paris, start doing their thing, because I think that would be a brilliant sport in Paris.
Definitely. Definitely, you bring a breakdancing. Well, I think we have quite a number of breakdancers in Fiji. They just need some liquid courage to go with it, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to share one of my favorite moments in the Olympics, and it actually was in the heats for athletics. Hassan, the athlete, when she had actually fallen over and she got up to win that event. That was really amazing watching her do that, because you've seen other athletes drop and give up, and then you have this girl who was right at the back of the pack, and she came in her heat to win the whole thing. I thought that was pretty amazing. That was one of my favorite moments in the Olympics. That and cheering for Fijiana. I think my whole neighborhood could hear me screaming and screaming and screaming. Okay. Thank you so much, Ben and Sharon, for giving up your time tonight to be on this Talano session. It means a lot to us, and the viewers, I'm sure, are so thankful for you both sharing your insights. Thank you to the viewers on Facebook and YouTube for coming on to watch this session. We hope to have more sessions like this, and we hope you can all tune in. Thank you.
Naka.
Bye.
Thank you so much. You're brilliant,
Thank
Catherine.
you.
Sharon, it's so nice to see you again.
Nice to see
Thanks,
you too, Ben.
Ben. Thanks,
Mole.
Sharon.
Sotata.
Mole.